how did the women's basketball team do against Ryder and Iona?
All that and more coming up next on Bobcat Breakdown. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Giovanni.
And I'm Gabbi Riggi.
It was all good just a week ago. Rick Seeley and the number 5 women's ice hockey team entered its final weekend at home looking to retain first place in the ECAC. But the task wasn't going to come easy, and it started on Friday night against the number 9, number 10 Cornell Big Red. It was deja vu for Quinnipiac, losing a heartbreaker in overtime to a top 10 national team with the 4-3 OT loss on Friday against Cornell. The loss dropped them into a second-place tie with Clarkson. Quinnipiac would rebound on senior day, defeating Colgate 2-0. The Bobcats have now lost 4 out of their last 6 games, with all 4 coming from top 10 teams. So, Gabby, is this an issue with ranked teams, losing to these ranked teams? Does it cause a concern?
Well, there's a yes and a no to that, Gio, for me. If you look at the record now, they're 3-5-0 against ranked teams. And, of course, you're going to look at that and go, oh, no, especially going into conference play, especially going farther down into the stretch run. You know, this team looks poised to make an NCAA run, so having problems with ranked opponents would equate a problem in the national tournament. But I don't think it's an issue. I think the cause of that problem and the cause against ranked teams was from the hardest chunk of their schedule. They traveled to Boston, played Boston University, Boston College, and then played Harvard at home. They could have easily won that Harvard game. And those two, they definitely kept it in tight. Chelsea Layden kept them in that game against the number 1 Boston College, who's still undefeated. So, I mean, yeah, it's a concern that they're not winning against ranked teams, but these games are so close and could have gone one way or another, especially the Cornell game as well. 2 of those games went to overtime, or 3 were one-goal games, 2 went to overtime. There's that concern a little bit, but I'm not too worried.
See, I would agree with you on the Boston College and BU games, but the rest of them, I would have to say I'm a little bit concerned, because if you look at the USCHO polls, Harvard's ranked 4th, Clarkson's 8th, Cornell's 10th, and St. Lawrence and Princeton are getting their own votes. So even though they're losing to top 10 teams, you're going to be facing those top 10 teams in the NCAA tournament. If you can't finish against those teams, then that's the problem.
I mean, I'm still going to go back to it's the toughness of the schedule. That's the hardest part of their schedule. I'm still not concerned, though. I think they're a better team than they played in a lot of those games, and a lot of those games were closer than what a box score might appear. That Harvard game, they were literally a minute away from winning that Harvard game, and that was one of the best games they played all year. Same goes for Boston College. Chelsea Layden stood on her head and stopped the nation's leading goal scorer time in and time out on breakaways. I mean, the numbers go past and the teams go past the polls. You talk at returning national champions, you look at this team. These teams are a lot better and a lot different in person than they are on paper, and I think while the poll means something, it's not everything.
The poll is kind of everything, though, because the top 8 teams in the country make the tournament. And even though they played Harvard very well and they played Cornell very well, what happened? They lost in overtime. And while the Cornell loss was a little bit of a lucky bounce, per se, and Chelsea Layden played well, the team was very inconsistent overall when it came to the faceoffs and the back check.
Well, I agree with you on the inconsistency points, but I still think they're a lot better of a team than they were in those games against those tough opponents.
Well, it appears, speaking of inconsistencies, that this team has spurts of dominant play countered by spurts of weak play. So going back to the inconsistencies, Gabby, do you think that will be a problem continuing into the postseason?
I think these teams were inconsistent this past weekend, but I think there's an end to that play going forward. I think the way that they played against Cornell was not the Quinnipiac team we've seen at all this year. That was a team that came out flat, did not backcheck, did not advance the puck at all. They were a flat team, and they were poor, really poor, in the first period against Cornell. I think by the end of the Colgate game, the second 2 periods of the Colgate game, that's the Quinnipiac we're used to seeing, and I think that's the Quinnipiac team that we're going to see going forward. Do I think they were inconsistent? Yes. Do I think that's a concern? Yes, but I think that the team that we're going to see moving forward is not the team that we saw on Friday night. It's going to be the team that we saw Saturday night.
I mean, I'm going to disagree with you on this because I know it's early on, we're just continuing to disagree, but when I saw the game against Cornell, one thing I saw a lot that was happening was Quinnipiac was losing a lot of faceoffs. And there was not one single player on the Bobcats that had a winning percentage in faceoffs in that game. Sure, they fought them hard and they lost in overtime. But at the same time, they had a period where they were pretty good, a period where they were not that good, and then the period where they were decent, but then overtime came along. You saw them either pinch too quick on the defensive side, or they gave Chelsea Layden a wide shot with no defensive help.
I think the biggest problem with that game, though, was there was just an overall lack of defense, and by the time the third period hit, they were gassed. So, if you're not winning faceoffs, yeah, that's a problem, but if your team is tired, they lost TT Cianfrano, didn't return to the bench after that second period. She's a big minute eater for that team. So just to see the team tired, they're a completely different team if they have her, and they're a completely different team if they're well rested. I think they just got caught off guard in that instance. I don't think that's inconsistencies. I think that's not being able to immediately accommodate something that's impacted the team.
Well, in that case, if you're talking about the team being gassed, that's another issue for them, because if they're going to be gassed against a top 10 team, what's going to happen to them when they play in the tournament?
I feel like that was just something that they kind of had to counter with in the game, though. I feel like going in, they weren't gassed. They played Harvard minute for minute until that very last minute in overtime, and that was almost the full 5-minute overtime. So be able to play a top team, a number 4 team in Harvard for 64 minutes, that's a team that wasn't gassed. They got caught off guard in that instance. That's not inconsistency. That's not playing down to their opponents. They just got caught.
And with the women's ice hockey team, the Bobcats have 4 games left in the regular season, including a trip up to North County for the weekend against St. Lawrence and Clarkson, who are the defending national champions. So one more question about this team, Gabby. What does this team need to do to rebound?
I'm going to go with what Rick Seeley has made this team's bread and butter this entire season, the back check. It was not there against Colgate. It was not there Cornell, pardon me. It wasn't there the first period of Colgate either. Colgate had the best chances in that first period. They need to back check. The fact that Chelsea Layden is pulling a Borja and Goita and trying to call plays, trying to tell her defensemen where to go, that should not be happening. The issue is the team, the forwards especially, need to commit 100% to the back check. Teams, they're amazing in the neutral zone. They can trap in the neutral zone like nobody's business. Harvard accounted for that. Cornell accounted for that. Moves play up to the boards. When the puck and they're having scrums in the corner or along the boards, players want to bring the puck out. They want to find that open man. Your defenseman needs to make sure, and your forward needs to make sure they're covering that back check. That wasn't there for 4 periods this weekend. That back check was not there. When they realized that and they accounted for that, it looked like the old Quinnipiac team. They got a 2-0 win because the forwards were committed to the back check, and the defensemen played shutdown and put the bodies and sticks in the lanes like they have and like they've needed to all season.
See, I'm going to agree with you on this, Gabby. I think the back check's important, but just to add a different point, I think another thing they should really focus on are the face-offs. And I mentioned that earlier in a previous question we discussed, that they consistently keep on getting outplayed in the face-off circle. And the problem with that is when you lose a face-off, that opposing team has the puck in your own zone, they can easily shoot from the blue line or pass a few times around the circles to make a play. And if the Bobcats can't win faceoffs and they can't get their own possession of the puck, during a power play, if they lose faceoff and that puck gets cleared, that's 10 seconds off the power play that you lose with a woman advantage. So I feel like against top 10 teams, the faceoffs need to come consistently.
I feel like faceoffs haven't always been something that I will say that's something they have sort of struggled with ins and outs for spurts this whole season. I feel like if your defense is there and your defense is accountable, it doesn't matter what they're doing with the puck because they don't have the possession for that puck very long because they're getting stick pressure, body pressure. There's someone in their lane preventing them from setting up these passing plays that you want to talk about. So for as good as they need to win the faceoff and as much as they do, I'm not saying they don't need to win faceoffs. They absolutely need to win faceoffs, but they can make up for that by playing strong defense. All right, Gio, that's going to do it here for the women's hockey part of Bobcat Breakdown. But when we come back, Gio and I will look back on the weekend that was for the men's hockey team. So stay right here.
We are your source for entertainment news.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
Welcome to Joya Spa and Salon in Hamden. Whether you want a new look or the perfect wedding day hair, come to us for complete hair and nail care, cuts, styles, updos, extensions, and beautiful dimensional hair color, as well as manis and pedis, acrylics, gels, and shellac. Treat yourself to a facial, a peel, or microdermabrasion. Relax with a variety of massage techniques, including Swedish and hot stone massage. Joya Spa and Salon. Call today.
That was then, this is now. Don't be just a number.
Hello, welcome to Chameleon.
At Chameleon Hair Color Cafe and Spa, it's all about what makes you feel beautiful. Their professional team is dedicated to helping you reach your customized beauty goals from your head to your toes. Chameleon Hair Color Cafe and Spa, where it's all about what makes you feel beautiful.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. After going 4-3-1 in the month of January, the Bobcats look to stretch their run of the ECAC playoff very strong. The number 16 team came into Cornell and Colgate last weekend. They defeated the Big Red at a very close overtime ending, a 1-0 win, and then beat Colgate 4-2 on Saturday night. Quinnipiac currently sits on top of the ECAC standings with 27 points. Second place St. Lawrence has 24 points. And four teams, Yale, Harvard, Dartmouth, and Clarkson, are tied for the third spot with 18 points. That is, what has Quinnipiac done, Gabby, to maintain the top spot in the conference?
Well, for me, it's a mix of a couple of things. The first thing was something that Rand Pecknold talked about a little bit earlier during the winter break. And it was that this team always finds a way to win, whether it's Michael Gartig stands on his head one night, as he did earlier in the weekend. Sometimes the defense plays absolutely beautifully against and shuts down all of these forwards. Sometimes it's special teams. It's the fact that this team has a lot of really solid components, and they've found ways to win. There have been surprises. How many times? There's been 2 or 3 times this season Travis St. Dennis has played the overtime hero for this team. There's been a couple times Tim Clifton has kind of come out of nowhere for the Bobcats, always getting a garbage goal in front. So, I mean, this team has found ways to win. I also think that a lot of the experience that they've gotten in their out-of-conference play definitely helps to build them up. They played 9 of their 12 games were against big Hockey East opponents, so I think that definitely helped prepare you for a little bit of a weaker ECAC. So I think the experience they got early in the first half of the season mixed with their ability to find ways to win has helped make them successful so far.
I have to agree with you on that, Gabby, and I'm also going to add a point that their young players are playing pretty well as well. Landon Smith, the freshman, has 7 goals in ECAC play so far this season. Travis St. Dennis had the overtime goal this past weekend as well. And even though minus Dan Federico, that their defensemen are pretty young, they've done a pretty good job of playing the back check and the forecheck throughout the past few weeks in conference play. So with that said, though, the Bobcats had historically problems coming away with 2 wins in a weekend. So with that sweep last weekend, Gabby, how big was that for the men's team momentum-wise? And why are you laughing?
Rand Pecknold, I bug him about this almost any weekend that they split the weekend. So he and I have a history of, he once told me that it's when you win 1 game and lose 1 game is how you split the weekend. But it's big for momentum, but momentum can really only do so much for this team. It's big in the point standings for the conference, I think. So while it helps boost the team's ego, while it helps them feel good coming away with 2 really strong teams in the conference, 2 middle-of-the-pack teams who at this point are either might be in or on the fence of being in, or a team that at this point just have to play spoiler to kind of hurt teams like Quinnipiac. I think the momentum helps them going forward. It's confidence coming into 4 probably the most important games of their season at home. And I think the points are just what they need most. As you said before, they have 27. St. Lawrence coming in has 24. So if they drop to St. Lawrence, they'll be 1 point ahead of them in the conference. So I think points in the conference is what matters most after that sweep.
This is definitely a huge weekend for the Bobcats, and this team has never really won 2 games in a weekend that often. And it's been consistent with Rand Pecknold and his teams every single year that the Bobcats start off slow, trying to find their stride. They get these new players, they find their way in the system, and when they do, after playing those non-conference opponents, they seem to find their stride. And that overtime win against Cornell, coming from Travis St. Denis, that goal, that's huge. You want players like that to step up. Because last year, Travis St. Denis really wasn't producing as well. Then you add a guy like Landon Smith, forgot to mention Sam Anderson, who leads the team with goals and points this year. So you get all these players scoring goals, not to mention Matthew Peck as well, spacing the ice. This team is starting to find ways to win. And with the overtime goal, gives you confidence because if you can win overtime, it gives you hope you can win in any situation. And in the past years, though, Quinnipiac's defense has been the backbone behind their success. But minus Dan Federico and Alex Barron, the defense is young and inexperienced. So, Gabby, do you see the inexperienced defense being a problem for the Bobcats as they enter conference tournament play?
I'm going to give a little bit of a yes and no to that. I'll say yes because having inexperienced defensemen is always going to be a thing. You know, defensemen, you have to be smart to play that position, though. I think Quinnipiac does have a lot of smart defensemen. But I will say that they all have their legs underneath them. You know, you even look at a guy like Kevin McKiernan, who's kind of had to fill in as he's gone. He's never looked lost out there on the ice. There might be a miscommunication or a misplay, but he never looks lost. And I feel like part of that, again, going back to that big game experience that they had early on, I think arguably Quinnipiac had the hardest out-of-conference schedule out of any team in college hockey. And I think playing these big teams, even the UConns, even the Northeasterns, they're big teams for Quinnipiac to face off against. So I feel like these guys kind of got their legs underneath them, and however capacity of experience that they've had, yeah, the defense is young, yeah, they're missing Devontae's at this point, but I feel like they've gotten enough experience and they've gotten their legs underneath them, and they've seen each of these ECAC teams once before, that I feel like it's not going to be as much of a liability as people are afraid it might be. I'm
going to disagree with you because I think one of the issues with the defense right now is that sometimes they have problems when it comes to pinching. I remember one play a few weeks ago, Dan Federico made a pinch, gave him too early and gave away a breakaway chance. And a lot of the times this year, guards will take a lot of shots with no defensive help. It'll be a wide open shot. And that's an issue. Even though they've had experience with non-conference play this year, it's only one season. When they went to the national championship 2 years ago, they had their defensemen mostly who were seniors and juniors. Now it's just 2 seniors and a bunch of freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. I feel like that's going to be an issue because these players haven't played against big teams in big situations just yet. I even feel like, though, even seeing last year the way they played against Providence, I feel like that was kind of a surprise that a lot of these guys needed and a lot of things that they wanted to carry with them. And I know talking to Matt Peck at the end of last year, he said that there was always a leader in the locker room, and he saw leaders and guys who were freshmen becoming sophomores. And I feel like that's true on both the forward lines and the defensive pairing. So I feel like while it might be a concern, these guys are going to make mistakes regardless of what year they are. I feel like them being younger isn't, again, as much of a liability as people are afraid it is. All right, Gio. Good work on the hockey talk, as always, my home turf. We're going to take our final break of the show, and when we return, Gio and I will break down the past weekend for women's basketball. So stay right here.
We are your source for entertainment news.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
Welcome to Joya Spa and Salon in Hamden. Whether you want a new look or the perfect wedding day hair, come to us for complete hair and nail care, cuts, styles, updos, extensions, and beautiful dimensional hair color, as well as manis and pedis, acrylics, gels, and shellac. Treat yourself to a facial, a peel, or microdermabrasion. Relax with a variety of massage techniques, including Swedish and hot stone massage. Joya Spa and Salon. Call today.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
That was then, this is now. Don't be just a number.
Hello, welcome to Chameleon.
At Chameleon Hair Color Cafe and Spa, it's all about what makes you feel beautiful. Their professional team is dedicated to helping you reach your customized beauty goals from your head to your toes. Chameleon Hair Color Cafe and Spa, where it's all about what makes you feel beautiful.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. On the other side of the TD Bank Sports Center, the women's basketball team continues to be on a tear. Coming off a 96-54 trouncing of Ryder on Saturday, the Bobcats remain undefeated in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference with 13 wins. Gio, what do you think's been their key to success in their second year in the MAAC?
One word, depth. This team can run 10 women deep and has the ability to score at will. Recently, they beat Ryder by nearly 40 points, and they had players like Samantha Guastella, Val Driscoll, Jasmine Martin, Nicolai Ostergaard. These girls can just shoot at will, play good defense, and they can easily take out 5 of their stars at the same time and still keep the consistent play. You don't see that with any team in this conference. Iona is D'Amico Martinez and Joy Adams. Minus that, really nothing much is going on. Marist, while still a decent team in the conference, they lost a lot of their offensive firepower, so they're not looking as good. So with the fact that they can run 10 people deep, it's very impressive in general.
I'm going to agree with you on that point, but I'm also going to say that, you talk about how, especially the way that they run 5 players in, 5 players out, that shows the depth of this team. But I'm also going to say that they have a lot of experience both with the conference and in big games. Having that first year in the MAAC, you just get that exposure, you get the better feel for the conference. But these seniors, these starting 5, WNIT experience, NEC champions, 30-win team. They're not rookies to this. They're not new. Sure, the conference is new, but they know how to win regardless of where they are. So I feel like, yeah, they're deep, and that's absolutely a huge component to that team's success, but they have a lot of big game experience and big leaders on that team, too.
I agree with you on that, but I feel like having 10 players that can consistently play is a big plus because Sam Guastella is arguably the best player on this team, and when she's only averaging 25 minutes a game and you're winning by 20 to 30 points a game, that is mainly because of your depth. I mean, experience plays a part of it, but it's still the regular season. So when it comes playoff time, we'll see that experience. But as of now, they're winning games based on how many players they can play. Everybody's fresh as well. I mean, Jasmine Martin has been struggling all year, but they still find consistent ways to win, and they're always shooting the lights out.
Now, Gio, you talked about the depth of this team and the impact the Gold Rush is having, giving all of those 10 players, those deep players, starting time. Who do you think the biggest difference maker, though, has been out of those players or out of anyone on that squad for Trish Fabry?
I have to go with the graduate student Val Driscoll because she's a perfect replacement for Brittany McQuain, who graduated last year. She plays down low plays a very good job down low. You have people trying to go down low to her. She blocks shots left and right, plays the pick and roll very well with Boo Abshire, who's a very good passer, by the way, and she spreads the floor. Not only can she get you buckets inside, she gets you good rebounds. She's averaging 12 points, 7 rebounds a game. She spreads the floor. So having somebody like a hybrid forward like Samantha Guastella, you move her around, play the game with the defenses on the other teams, ruin their zones, have Samantha Guastella go for an open three, she'll make it almost every single time. I feel like Val Driscoll's impact has been very huge for them this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go. You mentioned Sam Guastella. She's been my difference maker for this team. I feel like, as you're saying, her and Driscoll are kind of a 1-2 punch for them. You know, she's, as you said, the good hybrid forward, plays the perimeter really well. 13 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 2 blocks with less than 25 minutes per game is insane. And as you're saying, Driscoll gives her that time and space to get those threes that she gets in, game out, will always nail that big three. Anytime that team needs her, she'll just put the team on her back and just go and get it. And
the best part is, for Driscoll, stats don't really tell the story. If you watch the game in person, you notice a lot of the times that when whenever any teams try to go down low against Driscoll, she will body them hard, she'll block shots, she'll open the lanes, and most importantly, she'll set up her teammates. Not only is she a good defensive player, she's very good with the ball as well, passing-wise. And I feel like having that as well, because having that is very important, because with Brittany McQuain, she was a good player, but she didn't open the floor like Val Driscoll does.
So you think Driscoll's a better player than McQuain was?
At this point, I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, we're too early to say that, but right now she's doing a pretty good job of replacing her shoes.
It's fair to say this Bobcats team has a lot going for them, being undefeated in 2015, 7-0 at home, and leading the MAAC in points per game. But this winning streak, including the game they just won on Monday against Iona, could be a bit of a problem for them. Do you think this team needs kind of a reset loss, refocus, going before they head into the MAAC tournament, or do you feel like maybe they should be able to be okay just running this momentum?
I think they should be fine. There shouldn't be any losses necessary, because they played one of their worst games of the year against Iona, and they still found a way to win. Even against Marist, they blew them out at their own home turf. I don't feel like losing really helps them out, because if they lose another game at this point, they might have a chance to lose their tournament bid, because an at-large bid is not guaranteed for this team, especially playing in this conference. And so winning out would be a great way to get a very good seed, but I don't see how losing at this point, especially near the end of the regular season, would help them. I feel like that would hurt their momentum more than it would benefit them down the long run.
I could go either way with this one. I would say, I would argue that maybe that first half against Iona might have been that reset that they needed. That was a first half where they just looked terrible, and they came on, and that was arguably the worst first half that team's ever played this season, and they still managed to defeat Iona. So maybe that'll be the reset that team needed, was just that first half against Iona. Could a team use a reset loss? Very well could. Maybe the other game against Iona coming up, maybe a game against Marist could be the one, but I think because of how well they've dominated play so far, they've outshot their opponents, they've outscored their opponents, game in, game out. Teams don't know how to handle that gold rush. I feel like they've just won by such large margins, they've carried such momentum, and they've just held their own and looked so dominating in any situation, in any game. Even in out of conference, they're 20-3 overall. So, I mean, the fact that one of your losses is to Notre Dame, that was so early in the season that this team has just carried on that momentum for so long, and they've been so dominant in their play. While you might want a reset loss, you might think you need to recheck that mentality. I think this team is riding so strong that they might not be able to lose.
That's what I'm saying, though. They had their chance to lose against Iona, played a very bad first half, and they came back and still won. And once again, the gold rush, going 10 people deep, I mean, that's a very interesting way to put things, because when you can run 10 women deep, you still find ways to win. At this point, this conference is, it's theirs to lose, in my opinion. But that'll do it for Bobcat Breakdown. And for more information on Quinnipiac Athletics, you can follow QBSN and Q30 Sports on Twitter.
For the whole staff here at Bobcat Breakdown, producers and crew, I'm Gabbi Riggi. He's Giovanni Mio. Take care, everyone.